7.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Higher Dimensions podcast. I'm Coyote Panda. I'm here with my co-host, Jackson.
Jackson.
And today we have Justin Alito here. Justin is a big fan of the podcast, and he's here today to discuss whatever comes up. So what's going on, man?
Not much. Excited to do this. Excited to be here. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm glad we decided on you as one of our sacred guests. You know, I think about this stuff all night. Sometimes for way too long. And I'm like, who do we want who is a high quality person who has like a spiritual mindset, who's not, ego driven. So thought about you, my man.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Of course. And we're drinking some Blue Lotus.
It's good.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm interested to see the dreams tonight.
Yeah, so you had some wild dreams on the Lotus.
I don't even know how to explain it. I met ETs and they were like weird looking. They were very weird looking. I have to like journal about that one.
I had weird ones too. I was like fighting my best friend. I didn't like it. Yeah.
ETs like traditional aliens type?
Dude, honestly, if I try to explain it, it's just gonna sound so weird. It was like humanoid, but it like wasn't, It was it was bizarre. And they were crashed, so I think they were like hurt, So it was kind of gruesome a little bit.
Okay.
So scary, kind of a little bit scary. But I woke up being like, I wasn't scared when I woke up. I was like, that was interesting. I wonder what that was about.
Yeah, man. Dreams are weird. You were doing some kind of dream work too.
Yeah. So me, like I was saying, me and Jenny, my wife, will do it once a month. And it's just, we've been doing it maybe 2 years now, 2.5. But we do it with my therapist. And it's just like small group, small intimate group. It's kind of been the same 6 or 7 of us for this entire time. And I think now we're starting to get more intimate with each other in terms of like what we're willing to open up about and share. Whereas like I look back to the initial dreams or when we first started and it's like you're just scratching surface level. And I don't think we really realized that, yes, we're sharing dreams, but the way my therapist structures it, it's basically like you're tapping into the conscious, unconscious, collective conscious. But then it also brings it back to like real world, practical. I got bills to pay. I got shit to do, So it's like, you can't stay out here all the time, but then pulling it back to like, well, what do you feel now in your body? What's coming up for you? And then you're like, oh shit, I'm doing therapy. And yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Especially group therapy. It's tough.
Yeah, that's interesting. Group therapy. That's definitely a way to prove your vulnerability.
Yeah.
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 And does he do like Gestalt method dream therapy? Do you know what that is?
I do. I've tried a session of it on my own.
Yeah.
I think I would have to like keep working to like get the real benefit of it. But he does actually. So I'm taking a class in school. It's called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique or something like that.
Yep.
But I was asking him about it today. And he's like, yeah, that's like the cornerstone of what I do. Just basically like when he does therapy, it's like, what emotion are you feeling in your body right now? Where do you feel it? And that's kind of like Gestalt too.
Yeah, I mean, the Gestalt is like parts integration in a way where we separate you from the aspect of yourself that needs healing, and then you have a conversation with that aspect of yourself or that ego. So with the dream Gestalt, it is everyone in your dream is you.
Okay. Yeah.
So whatever you're experiencing in your dream reflects some action or behavior or habit or desire that you have, but it's just animating in your dream as something else.
Yeah.
I also think, dreams are very healing. Sometimes healings that we cannot do here in the physical world, we can do them in the dream world. So
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. But that's really cool. I mean, I've never heard of anyone, especially local here on Long Island, which is like a living hell.
He's not local.
Oh, he's not local.
Yeah,
I was going
yeah.
to say we're in a different realm.
No, he lives in Minnesota. Yeah.
Minnesota. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a peaceful place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's awesome. Been doing that. Doing just started once a month. It's called like Death Rehearsal, but another group. It's a little bit bigger. But I've always, and I think everybody, whether we're aware or not, has some hang up with death. But it's just something I've had since a little kid. It's kind of always been lingering in the background. Just a hard time of like reconciling it. And then having people close to me, like getting up there and older, like realizing like, okay, their time, it might not be a year or 2 years from now, but it's coming. And then how do I start to make peace with that and handle that?
Yeah.
So it's going to be once a month for a year. The next session's next week. But yeah, that will be interesting.
Yeah, that's important work too. I mean, definitely recognizing our impermanence and planning for it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important, actually. Yeah, and I feel like it's much underlooked. Yeah, so that's good, man. You're doing some real work.
Trying.
Yeah, and you're in school for psychology.
Yeah, so I'm going for social work. I don't consider myself what you would think of when you hear like a traditional social worker. Mm-hmm. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just like I want to be more of a clinician when I'm done. Traditional therapy, whereas a lot of what you would probably think with traditional social work is like fighting all these social issues, and not that I don't care about them. It's just so much like I'm right, you're wrong. And I find a lot of truth on both sides, and I try to like meet in the middle. And sometimes, at school, it's like feeling like the black sheep because it's like don't always fully agree. And it's not that they're wrong, but it could be, just very one-sided. So,
absolutely. I mean, people see everything in three ways: with deletion, distortion, and generalization. So when someone has an emotional bias towards a particular topic or political view, they're looking at through a lens of deletion, distortion, and generalization. So there's no way that they can have the full picture. Mm-hmm. And then when you involve your emotions, if you have anger, when you're angry, part of your brain isn't even working anymore.
Yeah.
The part that rationalizes things. So you're now an irrational human being trying to discuss something, and it's really just what's coming out is just the passion that you have for that particular topic, and the logical part of your brain is not really working.
Yeah.
So it is political debates and social issues. Obviously, with Pluto and Aquarius right now, that's like a big theme.
Yeah.
I try to stay neutral myself, but I'm a very polarizing person. Like I'm very polarized on one side of history right now. And I've always been that way. I used to be polarized on the other side up until now. So I'm a lover of truth. Mm-hmm. I don't really know the totality of truth. So I'm open to, if somebody tells me something that subjectively seems very true and it's against what I believe at the moment, I'm open to that. Mm-hmm. But my ego usually thinks that most people are not very informed. I think people are emotional and they could be more informed when it comes to social justice and social issues. When I think of social work, though, I think of working in an institution, like a therapist who is in maybe some type of institution, like a school or a college or something. I don't know why, but that's what or in a hospital.
Yeah, I was just interning at the VA.
Yeah.
And that was, man, we've been doing this work for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've never been one of these people who are, are in this type of line of work that we do. And they're like, oh, the energy and this and I feel like I do more energetic work with my massagers, but I've never been to a place where I'm like, or I've said like the energy here is too much for me and I gotta go. But the VA, every day I'd go, felt like I was in a bad dream. It was just like heavy energy, just very run down. And I was actually talking to my therapist today, and I was like, you know what I was thinking about the whole time I was there? I'm like, I wonder if you have the trauma of all these vets, and even though from like an esoteric lens, like the weight of that darkness and trauma is wearing down the physical presence of the VA because it's so heavy and so dense. Like I would go, and I just wanted to walk through the halls with like a garbage bucket full of like sage and Palo Santo and like burning it.
Yeah. And intuitively, you're definitely correct.
Yeah.
In another lifetime, I was in real estate. And like the more dysfunctional the family was, the more run down the house would be. Mm-hmm. And once people would actually move out, the house would literally start falling apart. I've seen that so many times. So absolutely, there's like an energetic pull, an energetic entanglement with a person and a family and their home. Really, it's like all root chakra, So if this family has like issues around basic human survival, then it's going to be entangled into the environment. Actually,
have you ever seen anybody though who could like walk into a space like that and just not be affected by it and just stand so firmly in their own energy? You know what I mean? And just like brighten the places that they are. I feel like that's my goal recently because I get affected by every place I go in. I feel all the energy. I feel all and I leave like the same with you, and then you leave and you're just like, damn, how am I going to get over that one? And then I'm trying to start to like reverse that and just be like, why can't I be the thing that comes into this space and is like, just, brings my positive energy.
Yeah, I love that for you, man. I really do.
I mean,
that's awesome.
I'd love to. That's what we strive for,
Yeah, I mean, I feel you on that. I mean, if I wasn't such a moody fuck, I think I think I could do it. But I'm so moody. Yeah. If I'll just wake up in a bad mood and be like, I'm bringing this mood everywhere.
No, but you do it without knowing it, though, dude. Because I'm like super happy in your presence. So
well, there's a difference between the personality and the spirit, right? My spirit is great, no problems. But my personality has some issues. Like even today, I'm ordering food and I'm like, yeah, can I have like the potatoes well done? Because they're usually not well done and undercooked. And I'm like giving this girl a hard time, like a covert, like, your food is always a problem for me. This is what I'm telling her. But I'm like thinking about it after I'm leaving, and I'm like, why did you do that? Because you're in a bad mood.
Well, are they bad?
You're grumpy.
The potatoes?
I didn't order anything. I left without getting the food. Actually, I'm like, you know what? Just give me coffee, and then I just left.
Because if it's bad, you kind of would be helping, honestly, by telling them.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, this is just how I'm seeing myself.
Yeah.
We're also like allowed to be in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Then you get into toxic positivity.
Yes.
And then that's no good. And it takes a long time for people to like unwind that.
Oh, yeah. And in the spiritual community or the yoga community, that's a big issue. Toxic positivity is rampant.
It's really bad in those communities, but like what I started to realize like post-COVID was I felt like people are just afraid because you look at like society, it's like you got to strive to be happy. Any other emotion or feeling other than happiness or joy is like bad. Where it's like happiness isn't bad or good, and neither is like anger. It's neither bad or good. It's like, what is my relationship with happiness or anger? If I'm happy and it's in balance, like it looks like what we all strive for. But if I'm happy and it's out of balance, like happiness kind of in its probably darkness, looks like someone who's manic, who has no impulse control, who's just like neurotic all over the place. And then it's like anger, healthy anger would probably look like someone who's not afraid to set boundaries, not afraid to speak up for themselves, not afraid to just, hey, I don't want to take this. This isn't my shit to hold. Whereas like anger out of balance is destruction, chaos, war. What we're seeing, like that dark masculine, like the dark side of the masculine archetype.
Yeah.
But I think what happens is like, whether it's within the spiritual community or like what was going on with a lot of COVID, it's like, doesn't make you a dick or an asshole or a bitch to like speak up on this side. And I think people are just so afraid to like feel or look bad, and it leads to this toxic positivity. Like Gabor Mate, he's always talking about it, and it's like to be human is like embracing all of it.
Yeah, and all of that like suppression of actual emotion and your opinion goes. It's synonymous with cancel culture and censorship. And now we're finding out that there was a huge censorship psyop going on, like, to really suppress any opposing view whatsoever. So people are going to take a very long time to recover from that. It has affected people's personalities and self-esteem and self-value and self-importance and healthy ego. That is going to take a very long time now, because really it's been 8 years of that.
Yeah.
8 years is a long time. What if somebody's only 16 years old? Half of their life they've been socially engineered and mind controlled by the government and by these forces of domination and control that are behind the government we haven't even seen.
Yeah.
So it's I think we're coming out of a very dark time right now, but I think it's going to take time.
Yeah. I think of Hinduism, and who knows with all this stuff, but they say, like, I think we're in the Kali Yuga.
Right.
And just like the time of destruction, chaos, war, and then I don't know if we'll see the upswing, but supposedly coming on the upswing. So
yeah, it's hard to know because those cycles are so long. They're like 400,000 years or something like that. But subjectively we can feel this, just like we felt like a shift during 2012 when Saturn went into Pisces. That was a massive shift in consciousness. Was it Saturn? Yeah, Saturn went into Pisces, I think. We talked about it last time. And that was a huge shift in consciousness. Now, in 2025 into 2026, I think, end of 2025, Saturn goes into Aries. And that is going to be a huge change. A huge change where the whole movement towards spirituality might not feel the same, actually. And I think...
In what way?
Well, Pisces is ruled by Neptune, and it's the planet of dreams and spirituality. And Aries is a fire sign, and it has nothing to do with spirituality. It has more to do with individuality and the self and self-preservation. It's the first sign in the zodiac, so it's a little bit more naive, but it also has this energy of proving the self, right? Aries is the god of war, so it's a much different energy than Pisces, which is like a water sign. It's very emotional. It's very dreamy. It might have very, very lofty spiritual ideas, where Aries is like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But maybe it's necessary after what we've experienced in the last 12 years,
Yeah.
I think it might be. I mean, we all go through Neptune transits where the dream that we're in dissolves, and we have like this rude awakening where reality kind of smacks us in the face. Well, Saturn in Aries is going to do that. It's going to do that. And people are going to see, like, especially like people who are like charlatans or, dreamers or phonies, that whole Neptunian energy. Neptune is also very beautiful, very psychic. Like my Neptune is in my first house. So it's a very big part of my personality. So for me, the last 12 years, I've been like in my wheelhouse, you know? I don't know what that's going to be like going into Aries. I don't really know.
Do you know astrology like this?
I know, just everything based off of what he says.
Yeah, I've never gotten into astrology, like the deep dive of it.
It's pretty important. I mean, like literally, Pluto goes into Aquarius on January 11th, 2025, and everything in politics has changed. And we're seeing all of this truth and disclosure, and even more disclosure is coming out. And AI is something that's going to be huge in the next 20 years. And that's what Pluto in Aquarius is all about. So is it a coincidence? Absolutely not. I mean, we're in a wheel of time, and things are revealed to us during these transits and shifts in reality. So if you want to study consciousness, I think astrology is something that is an absolute must for anyone out there seeking to know themselves better and to know people better and society. It's important. You know, I'm not an expert in astrology, actually, at all. I'm like a mediocre astrologist. But, pretty cool stuff, though.
Life can only be lived moving forward and can only be understood living in reverse, going back. I like that quote.
Who's that?
I just saw it.
Yeah.
Somewhere. It can only be understood like when you look at it from end back to the beginning. Like you're like, oh, that's why that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
When you're just going through it, it's just like everything's just kind of hitting you. You're like, oh, that just happened. That just happened. You know?
Reminds me, I don't know if you guys seen that movie, Memento.
Yeah.
That movie's awesome.
It's a classic.
Yeah, it's the first scene of the movie is the first scene, and the second scene is the last thing that happens. The third scene is now. So it skips, and then it goes like the first half is like moving forward, this other half is moving backwards, and like the end of the movie is like the middle, what happens in the middle. So it was definitely like a very wild movie.
Oh yeah, I like when people play with time in that way in movies and do like what is that called?
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. They did that, right?
It's the guy who did Interstellar. I forget his name. Something Nolan.
So funny because I was going to talk about that movie because you know how the further they go out into space, there is no time.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we're only experiencing time because of where we are in the universe. So it's interesting that plays a big role in our veil of consciousness and what we know, and what's a mystery to us. Yeah.
Trying to get out there. Trying to get out to where time stops, chill out for a little bit, come back.
Take a little breather.
Yeah.
Yeah, take a break.
Yeah, maybe with some kind of astral projection, you could do that.
Yeah.
I was in my early 20s. I tried, because I've had a couple lucid dreams, but I wanted to like purposely induce them, and I had like one that was purposely induced, but I wanted to like try and bump it up to astral projection. And that was like when I was more into that side of life, like I'd say more spiritual in my early 20s, but I haven't made it that far. That's a pretty wild thing to like induce lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
There's certain like daily practices you could do to kind of help that.
You know, I'm like second guessing my whole Saturn, and I'm thinking I'm thinking now that I was actually talking about Neptune in Pisces, and Neptune is going into Aries.
Well, I couldn't fact check you because I know nothing.
Yeah, the whole lucid dreaming thing's cool. Like, there's certain things it's almost like you could do in the physical now to ground yourself to the point where you'll be conscious enough in the dream to be able to almost like go back to it. Like, it could be something really small.
I was staring at my hands a lot, and you're supposed to write on them, and then in the dream you realize like, oh, they don't have the writing on dream, and something like that.
So I was wrong. It was Neptune, and because the whole time I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm not right about this. Neptune has been in Pisces since 2012 and will remain there until 2026. And then in 2026, Neptune will go into Aries. So Neptune is the planet of creativity, dreams, spirituality, and intuition. And it spends 14 years in each sign of the zodiac. It takes about 160 years to move through the entire zodiac. So it is going to be in Aries in 2026, not Saturn. So sorry.
Everyone freaking out. This is when you guys needed Jamie. pull that up.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we are on a tight budget here. We finally got microphones.
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying I'm not the best astrologer. I'm like a mediocre astrologer.
You're gonna make a mistake here or there, but it's okay. You corrected yourself. You figured it out.
Yeah, I knew something was off. Yeah, man. So, I met Justin in massage school. So that was around that time.
Yeah.
Wow. A lot of people we know to this day, almost 12 years later, or maybe longer, if you think of the time we started school, it's been about 14 years. And, if you look at people, the journey and the transformation that some of those people have gone through, it's pretty profound.
Yeah.
So I really accredit a lot of that to that particular Neptune transit, especially people who are seeking that kind of spiritual growth, or they want to be in the healing arts or something like that.
Yeah. And it's wild too, because it's like some people have faded off from it. It's just not who they are or what they want to do at all. And again, no right or wrong. Like I had a girl I started working with, and just got out of school, and a couple months in, she's like, I don't know, I'm tired. Like, this is tough. Huh? I'm like, damn, you just started. But it could be like, okay, you tried out the thing, you realized this wasn't it, and then, okay, maybe massage wasn't for you,
Yeah.
So, did you consciously choose, because you did massage first, right?
I wanted to be a nurse, and I could not go to nursing school full time, so I ended up going to massage school by default. And I just really wanted to be in service and to be in healthcare. I was in real estate and finance. It was a totally different world. I liked some of that, world experience that I was getting, but I didn't want to sell anything ever again. But now, I still have to explain what I do all of the time. People are very confused as far as what I do, how I do it, why I do it. So that was like training for where I'm at today. But no, man, I didn't know. I had no idea. What about you? Did you know, like, I want to do massage?
No, not at all. I growing up, whenever I wanted money, I would do chores around the house, and one of the things I would do is I would massage my mom's feet. And then throughout the years, that kind of just stuck. And then when it came time to go to school after high school, she told me about massage. And to this day, she says, like, I didn't tell you about that. That was you. You picked it out. I was like, fucking way. I never would have picked it out, But she told me about the school, at least in my version. And she said, you should try that out. You're really good at massaging my feet. And then at the time, I was like, all right, sounds better than community college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then when I started going, I was doing a lot of working out, kickboxing, mixed martial arts. So it's like, as I'm learning about the body, then I'm going and working out. I'm like, oh, this is how this works. This is the origin, insertion. So then it was just like, boom, picked it up quick. And then, yeah, love it.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you thought it came from your mom, but your mom said, no, I wasn't the one who told you to do this.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because in my view, you were guided through your unconscious mind. Because similar things have happened to me too, where like I had a friend show me the raw material, which is something, it's a channeling, and it's a very, very profound working of spirituality and healing. And it became like my Bible for a long time. And the person who told me about it has no recollection of telling me about it whatsoever. Like, it was a person who would have never even given a second look at something like this.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, don't you remember when you showed me that website? And he's like, I didn't do that. Because things happen to people. The unconscious mind works through other people. And because it's the unconscious mind, they're not conscious of it either.
Yeah.
So then we're like, no, you said that. I remember.
Yeah.
Maybe they did, but it was just something like literally coming through them because
Yeah.
the message had to get to you somehow.
And that's like when I look at like my career in massage up to this point, I'm like, oh, I don't think that was by mistake or accident. Like everywhere it's led me to from then. And it's like you'll have massage therapists who treat massage purely surface level. Then you have massage therapists like Diane or other people like that, Jackie. And it's like you understand there's so much more than just like the surface level aspect of massage. If you want it to be just fluff and relaxing, like it could absolutely be that. But it was just like early on, I started to realize like, oh, this is so much more. And it helped that, shout out Arkady, I worked with this old Russian dude who was like 65 years old. You could barely understand what he'd say. The line for him between like, is this man batshit crazy or is he a genius, was like paper thin. And he would like talk to me and try and drill something into me, like a concept, or he was like a mentor of sorts. And he'd be like, it's all perception, all perception. And I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about, Arkady. He's like, get the fuck out of here. And just like, but he was also the type of person who would like look at you and could tell you exactly what's wrong with you. And he wasn't a charlatan, wasn't a bullshit artist.
Mm.
He was just a crazy, old, tapped in Russian dude. He was awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting. We had Nick on the show, and he was talking about Thomas Campbell. And in Thomas Campbell's interview on the Joe Rogan show, he was talking about how the intuitive mind is actually much more powerful and much more important than the logical mind. But very few people are tapped into that intuitive mind.
Mm-hmm.
I personally love the intuitive mind. I use my intuitive mind more than my logical mind. I actually have poor logic. I do very illogical things all the time. But intuition is so overlooked, especially when science is like so overemphasized in our society, where if there's no scientific data, people don't want to hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, look at what just happened with trust the science. People have had the wool pulled over their eyes, and now the damage is irreversible. Like there are people who are possibly suffering irreversible damage for trusting science.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the things that were said were not scientific at all.
Yeah.
My intuition was like, don't wear this fucking mask. Don't trust this guy. Don't take this vaccine.
Yeah.
And I had friends telling me, you got to take it, man. You're not going to be part of society, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. No. And I don't judge people whether they did or they didn't. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because I also understand. Because I was at a point where I was like, I can't lose my career over this. Like, they were really putting the pressure on us, but I'm glad that I didn't. And now all of this information is coming out about people having serious health problems and turbo cancers and, like I said, like irreversible damage.
Yeah.
They're talking about taking it off the market, but then there's yeah, absolutely. And then there's other institutions that are still pushing it as hard as possible.
Yeah, it's crazy. I just growing up, my parents were never like parents to like, oh, you're sick, go to the hospital. Like I remember vividly being sick for a month, laying on my couch, seeing like double and triple, like wake up every day, cough out like green and yellow phlegm. And I was like, Mom, please take me to the doctors. For better or for worse, wouldn't take me. They're like, no, you'll be okay. Just like, it'll be fine. But my whole life, I've just never been, even before COVID. So even now, if I like go to the doctors and they say something about vaccines, I'm like, even before COVID, I was just not into vaccines because I always felt like intuition from that standpoint. Like I didn't know any better, but there was a piece of me that always felt like, why? Like if I'm healthy now, why would I need to do that?
Right.
And then being at school, same thing like you, like you had to get the vaccine. Fought it off for as long as I could, and then they're like, okay, it's either you stay in school or you got to stop coming.
Damn.
So I got the Johnson and Johnson because I was like, all right, it's not mRNA. I didn't feel good doing that, but I felt better doing that over Pfizer and the other. The sickest I've ever been that night. Hot sweats, cold sweats, felt terrible. And then a couple months later, then they're making it mandatory for the boosters. And I'm like, okay. I already felt like I sold my soul a little bit getting the first one, and it really went against my morals and ethics. And I what happened to my body, my choice. I don't even want to get into that topic, but I felt like I didn't have a choice in any say, and I felt very violated. And so when it came time for the booster, I was like, all right, fuck this. Like, if you guys want to kick me out, so be it. Like, I don't care. So when it came time, I didn't get the booster. I didn't write it down on my for school. And then I get an email and they're like, oh, they put a lock on my schedule for making my schedule for the next semester. And I wrote to the dean and I wrote to a couple people and they're like, well, you got to get it. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, all right, what do I do now? Because I still got I hadn't started my graduate program. I was in my third year or whatever, undergrad. And then they're like, but if you sign here and say you'll get the booster over the summer, then you can make your schedule. I was like, all right, fuck that. Like, I'm going to sign. I'll make my schedule. And then I was going into my last semester. So I was like, I'll just ride it out. But then over the summer, science came out showing that the boosters were ineffective. And then they went from this is mandatory and most of the kids got the mandatory booster to now this is highly recommended. I was like, fuck you guys. Like, it was, but again, it's not, probably wasn't even that. It's like people above them and the theatrics of everything.
Yeah, it's bureaucrats. Yeah. It's school and superintendents, and lawyers and things like that are pushing that. I think, I don't really know for sure.
Yeah.
It's why. I'm surprised that people aren't more outraged.
Yeah.
The cognitive dissonance and just the accepting the fact that we were all lied to and manipulated and actually physically harmed. It's crazy that people are just like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
I gave up my body autonomy and whatever, it's a huge, this is it's the biggest scandal in our lifetime. And it probably will be the biggest scandal in our lifetime. The funniest thing, and I heard this today, Fauci wrote an article, now that he's not head of the NIH, wrote an article that the COVID vaccine, the mRNA vaccine, and the flu shots are not effective enough. Do you even believe that?
And that's why he got pardoned.
I mean, that's part of why he got pardoned. I mean,
that's wild. I got to look into that.
Yeah, he just wrote it, and it's in some obscure publication that only scientists look at. It's Microbes and something.
Yeah.
Some ridiculous magazine that nobody cares about.
Mm.
I mean, I could look it up, but it was on the Jimmy Dore show today. They talked about it. And I was saying from the beginning, I'm like, this guy is a Nazi doctor. He looks like Joseph Mengele. Mm. They look alike. I'm like, he could be the reincarnation of this guy. Who knows? Yeah. I don't even know what to say. I mean, I could go on and on and on about it.
Were you forced to get it, or in a situation?
No, luckily, no. I skated right by that shit.
Yeah.
I wasn't in anything that made it mandatory or anything.
You're like, I'm just gonna stay over here.
I was just working a little construction thing,
nice.
And doing freelance painting. So I wasn't. But I kind of want to go back to the massage thing because I'm thinking when you said it was surface level and you realized that there's something deeper to it. Yeah. I want to know, was there a sort of moment or a little section of time where that kind of happened for you, where you were where it clicked, where you were oh, this is more than just kind of feeling good and everything. This goes deeper.
Truth be told, it was a number of different things. Like I was telling you earlier, it was coming in contact with that book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay.
And then that really opened up my world. But I think in conjunction with that, just at the time, I was doing a lot of psychedelics.
Cool.
And so I was thinking a lot about the body, and it just like, I don't know. Intuitively, that guy Arkady played a big role in like how I looked at the body. He definitely probably influenced like, hey, this is so much more. And then honestly, probably too, like at that period in my life, I never had social anxiety, and I got it really bad, to the point like I couldn't look anybody in the eyes, like I couldn't look my best friends, my parents, family, like anybody. And that was when I went out, did the PCT, like hyped for 6 months because I was like, I just need to figure my shit out. But I was in like this, what they call it, dark night of the soul period of my life, and I think it just got me to be way more introspective, probably to a point of like damage me a little bit because it's like I went too inwards, you know, and
On the PCT or
just
during that time.
During that time,
Yeah.
like, but it was so tough. I didn't want to be around people. Like, it was so hard for me. And hiking for 6 months, I was like, this sounds
That's
better
badass,
than being here and having to like talk to people like this. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I would talk to people and just like lock up, and I just had to figure my shit out. But yeah, it was a little bit of everything, and then just really seeing people come back and noticing like they're coming back with the same issues. Actually, I had too like a little bit of a breakthrough moment in school. Do you remember Tom Miller?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was working on me in front of the class, and he's working on my chest, and he brings my arm up like this, and I got my eyes closed, and he's like holding my arm, and he lets go, and I don't think anything of it. And then like after a couple seconds, like he's not doing anything, I don't hear anything. I'm like, open my eyes, and he's like, you see this? This is what people carry all day long unconsciously. And it was my first like somebody showing me, making me aware of my body, and like, oh my God. Then I started to get curious about my own internal, like, I had a lot of tension in my chest. I went through like a couple months, year to 2 years of like stretching the pecs out, and I would like constantly like crack my chest. I don't do it anymore. I think I broke through like a lot of that. Like,
I do that all the time.
oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
But it was like, I was
Like
closed off for so long, but I had to like open everything up, and it was just a month of almost like the body like readjusting itself. So it was a bunch. Yeah, it was cool. But Tom Miller, that was like,
he was a good teacher.
He was
liked
amazing.
Him. Yeah,
like
we had some great teachers.
Yeah.
Did you end up teaching at the school?
No.
Yeah, I did. It was an experience.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, massage school will change your life. It's a weird thing because people like, there's a whole stigma around massage, especially if you're like a male massage therapist. People don't understand like the spiritual aspect of massage and the energy body, and how emotional a massage could be, and how profound of a healing like a really great massage could actually be.
Yeah.
Even like last month for my birthday, I got a massage with my wife, and I definitely had a major healing afterwards. Yeah. I was like crying, complaining about my dad,
Yeah.
So
where did this come from?
Yeah, I mean, knowing what I know, I knew, but it was wonderful. It was so needed.
Yeah.
It put a lot of things into perspective about the way that I think and where that came from.
Yeah.
So, and you're still doing massage to this day.
I am. I'm close to being done with school. I'll be done in May. And then I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't know if I could ever, me and Diana have this talk, but like, I'm like, I don't know if I could ever fully get rid of massage because there's nothing like it. Like, it's such an intimate thing. And it's like, when I have really good sessions and people get off the table and like, that was amazing, I'm like, yeah, I feel that way too. And so like I get back, more than just financially too. Like I definitely, it's a two-way street. Um, but I think once I'm done with school, I definitely gonna pull back big time, focus on like social work, traditional therapy, but then the breath work, the somatic breath work that I got into, I've I've tried Reiki, I've done myofascial seminars, I've done different avenues, tried all the things over the years, and like I don't know, I could count on one hand the number of things that I like tried that I feel like, oh, there's some like actual value here. But the breath work that I did, the somatic breath work, it's like I did the 4-day training, and there's a clear Justin before going for the training and Justin afterwards, and talking about like public speaking was a big thing for me. Like that's completely helped change, but that came up a lot amongst other things. But it was like what came up for me at the end, you share your experience. And what I spoke about was like a certain person in my life came up, but I had done a lot of work around that person, like cognitively making peace with that part of my past. But viscerally during the training, and I had no intentions to go look at that person or knew anything was there, but viscerally, moments from my childhood came up where I felt like my power was robbed from me, unjustly was taken. And so it was like me screaming and shouting, like probably what I wanted to say in that moment. But as a kid, you're too afraid. So it's like I shut it down. So it was coming back up because it's like I've been holding on to this for so long that I just want to express myself in that manner so I can move on with whatever aspect of getting my own power back. So this way I could use it and like choose to use my voice in whatever manner. But so I said, like, I realize now, I read the body keeps the score, but now I know, like, oh, it really does. Like, capital K, no. And like, viscerally, I hadn't made peace with that person or that part of my past. My body hadn't. And even after the training, working with people and doing groups or one-on-ones where I do a one-on-one and the person's completely still the whole time, and I'm like, oh, this is dog shit. Like, I don't know if I'm like just peddling snake oil or what, and then they come out afterwards and they're like, that was fucking incredible. And it's like, oh. And then each time I would do it myself, I'd have its own experience because it's, yes, there's a woo-woo element tied into it, but you're getting into physiology. And that's where I think it's like grounded in, it's like you got 1 foot off, 1 foot down, and you're touching woo-woo, but you're also grounded in like practical reality of things. And so, yeah, just the more I kept doing it and the more I would do my own sessions, and okay, this is still like legit. The more I work with people and the countless sessions that I've had where people have laid completely still and come out, or I had one woman, I started seeing her through massage, and then I started seeing her through breath work after. And she had a really crazy childhood. No one should ever have to go like intense childhood trauma. She's like, I just want to let you know what I've been through before we start working together, see if you're okay with that. We talked on the phone for like half an hour. I was like, that's some heavy shit. But I was like, all right, I'll try. And the first session was a good session. And then the second session, like the first round, nothing was really going on. And then the second round, I'm like, oh, maybe this is a dud. And then she just starts screaming like, I thought my neighbors were going to call the cops. It was the most intense emotional moment I had been a part of. And I'm like, what do I do? Because now I'm trying not to freak out and I got to be here for this woman. But I was like, do I do something? Do I like help her in a certain way, And then like a voice cut through is like, you don't have to do anything. You just be with her. And it's like the definition of what it means to hold space. And I felt like if I would have not been a good anchor or like grounding point, like I would have got pulled into her experience, and then it maybe could have like re-traumatized her. And it was like a testament of like, what holding space is, but also like the deepness of what that work can do. So it's like
yeah.
how I want to work with people is like we do something like that, or maybe I incorporate fascial release or body work, and then whatever I notice or whatever comes up emotionally, then we process it with traditional therapy. Because I keep saying like all you do is go to a therapist and you talk about how you feel, but you don't ever come into the body and what does my body want me to feel in this moment? Like that's no good. And if all you do is feel, like not a knock on like a lot of like the spiritual side of things, but you don't ever use logic or reason or critical thinking to make sense of it, like my gut or a piece of me will say, go eat a cupcake or a piece of cake. And then it'll say, keep going, keep going. But at a certain point, you got to like, should I be eating all of this? Just because I can doesn't mean it's good. So it's like trying to merge those worlds. Long road for sure, but
Yeah, I mean, have you ever read Eastern Body, Western Mind?
no.
No. Yeah, the woman who wrote that book does work with the chakras, but she's a therapist, and she puts the people into different positions based off of what chakra they're working on, and helps them through like a breathwork journey while like having them do some type of physical movement. It's very interesting. I would definitely say
Check it out.
yeah, it's a big book, but it's a great book. It's one of the best books for that.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, that's some very interesting work.
Yeah.
Definitely am on board with that.
The woman that had this big breakthrough, like, was that it for her? Like, was that like, it was like a big portion of her healing was covered right there? Or, is it kind of ongoing?
I'm like trying to find the right thing to say. And she would never come across this, but just to respect who she is. No, she said in that moment, like because her trauma involved like male masculine energy. She said I helped repattern, like helped her feel safe with male energy, masculine energy. But especially something like, and this is the hard part. This is kind of where I feel like imposter syndrome, but like we all experience our own trauma. I've had my own trauma. I can't say it's ever been too extreme. So it's like when I meet someone like her and like extreme trauma, I'm like, man, like, can I relate to that? But it's also, do I need to relate to it? Or do I just need to help meet her where she's at? But maybe that healed a big part, but she's constantly like, and someone like that, it might take her a long time, whether that's karmic or whatever it may be, but it might take her like a long time to work through that. Whereas someone who has not as intense trauma, it still could take a long time and you'll still always probably come back to bits and versions of that. But all the work she's done since I've met her for the past 3 years, like same thing. As I noticed my chest starting to open, I've noticed her body become more full. Like, and she's this old 65-year-old woman. It's just like you notice like she's coming back into her body more. It's filling out more. She's not this like tired, small, frail woman anymore.
You can like feel the aura. You can feel people's aura. Yeah.
And she just went to India. She just went to Sedona. Like every couple of months, she's like, oh, I'm going to this guru, that guru. I'm meeting this person. So she's doing a lot. But I don't know if we'll ever fully be done until maybe like we decide like, peace. I'm not coming back down to earth. Like I'm good. I've had a good run. And
yeah, I would say that we are never really done with healing. We have thousands of lifetimes to heal. So it's we heal what's necessary for our purpose in this lifetime. And people have a lot of that to do, and they may have a greater purpose to fill. They may have to hold space for more people than somebody who maybe their journey here doesn't involve as much healing. The healers, though, tend to go through the most. You are in the healing arts. The chances are you've had a ride. You've gone on a ride and you've gone through a lot. You know, they call that like the hero's journey.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, anybody who's gone through a real hero's journey knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you feel like, okay, you know, maybe I've made it to a point of stability, and then something else comes in and it tests you, and
Yeah,
there's cycles.
for sure.
You know, we're going through cycles,
Yeah.
and next cycle, hopefully, you handle it a little bit better, a little bit easier, with more grace for yourself. So I think that's a beautiful story, though, holding space for that woman. A lot of people really can't hold space. It's a gift, you know, especially as a man, holding space for a woman, because women have been so emotionally and physically damaged by men for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, this is a great time for people to heal that, for men and women to heal that. Beautiful time for that. So, great story.
Yeah. I don't even think I knew fully what holding space entailed or meant until a couple of years ago, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of new for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people have like this natural ability, like my son, who's 16. He holds space better than anybody I've ever seen. Like, he's just present, and he has an unbelievable ability to like be in something with a person. So if one of our ferrets died and we were crying, me and my wife and my son, he was able to be in it with us, but he was strong and he was just there holding space for us. And I was like, I was so proud of him. I was like, this is the future. I always say you should be a psychologist. He's a Sagittarius, and you know, I definitely saw something very special in him. It was great.
That's got to be cool, being a dad and like watching the arc and journey of your kid, and then wondering like what profession they're gonna fall into or choose, and
Yeah, it's very interesting, and you know, I'm open to whatever he chooses, even though I see something special in him. Like, you know, I'm excited to see how it turns out.
Yeah.
And yeah, man. I mean, I'm really just grateful that you were able to make it in today.
Yeah.
It looks like the microphones are flashing at us.
I want to ask you another thing about, because you said you started doing MMA and stuff like that. Yeah. Like when, because I'm like very physical. I like working out and stuff, but I haven't like crossed that leap of like I want to do something that's like, I wouldn't call it violent, but it's more like, I don't know. I guess it is like a little bit more like violent
It's
looking.
aggressive.
Yeah. Like what was your introduction to MMA like?
I got jumped
Oh,
in
okay.
like high school. Yeah, and I got a concussion. And it was at the time of Never Back Down coming out, and like MMA was just bursting to the scene.
Well,
and I've always been like, I've toned down a lot.
Yeah.
Like my wife now, Jenny, she'll say like, "You're a hard 25% psycho," but that's probably because like
just so everyone knows on the other end,
Yeah.
if they can't hear us. And you've also been doing marathon running.
Hell yeah.
Big.
That to me is insane.
Yeah. I think it's like the theme of what we've been talking about. Like, I think things come into your life at the right point.
Yeah.
And I had always ran just as like general health and wellness. Like, I did track in middle school, but I was fucking terrible and just not good, not a good runner. And I think I grew up believing I'm not fast and I'm not a good runner. And then I got to a point where I was like, I want to do a marathon just to see if I can do it, like bucket list thing. And then I did it, and then I said, fuck this, I'm never running again. And then a couple years ago, like right around COVID time, right before, I went into a 2-week episode of Drug Induced Psychosis. And once the dust settled on all of that, like, it was a very challenging time in my life, and it was very hard to make sense of everything. And at that time, I think I just needed something more. And I had, again, this is like the hard psycho side of me, but I signed up for a 100-mile ultra marathon. And it was in the process of training for that I fell in love with running, to the point where I was like, I'm fully in, like, this is amazing. But during that period too, like, training for an ultra, I was spending so much time running, and even in the winter, just like doing these long runs and in the woods where it's just so quiet. I wasn't running with music. And especially coming out of psychosis, where like nothing felt real, none of this felt real, to now like having to cement my world and piece it back together. It was just such a good thing to come into my life to help me work through what I went through.
Yeah, I could like feel that for you right now.
Yeah.
Man. That's like so grounding, and I love that story.
Yeah.
I don't love the drug-induced psychosis part.
And you helped me through a lot, you know, like with coming to you for sessions and stuff. And I've been dealing with a foot injury for almost a year now. It's kind of kept me out of running the way I'd like to.
Right.
I think I'm finally coming on the tail end of it. I found like a good PT who really knows his shit, and I think it's helping. But it's been such a long journey trying to get back, and it made me really emotional. Like in the beginning of the year, when I like couldn't run at all, and it was the first time since that period where I couldn't run, and then school was happening. I had an internship that I hated. My mom, she's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That was getting worse. That everything like hit like a storm, and I got tinnitus from it. But I was getting so emotional. Like I was working with Diana a little bit too. I'm like, why am I getting so emotional over fucking running? This is so silly. But to the point of like crying. And I started to realize, I was like, this came to you at such a special time in your life, when like, and it really helped you through. And it's just been like, again, I need a lot to have like a good stress relief. That's why during this injury, I'm like, maybe I could get back into jiu-jitsu, you know, because I go to the gym, but I just need a little bit more. But again, with jiu-jitsu, I'm like, you get injured, like,
yeah, and a lot of people get injured, neck injuries
all the time.
I worry about neck injuries.
Yeah.
If you injure your cervical spine, you're totally fucked.
Yeah, and it happens so often. So, but yeah, I don't know. I love running. I have a hard like goal that will probably take a couple years to achieve, and then I say maybe once I hit that, I'll turn towards jiu-jitsu. But like, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Did you finish the 100-mile marathon?
I did.
That's like some David Goggins shit right there.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's physically the hardest thing I've ever did.
I can't even imagine 100 miles.
How do you feel after? Like, did you sit down and were just like, I can't even believe what I just did? Did you fall? Did you know what I mean?
I was super emotional.
Yeah.
Crying. I did too. And after my second one I just did this past May, I'm like, I don't know if I'll do 100 miles again. Because the first one was like, again, same with the marathon, is like, can I do this? I want to see what my boundaries are. I did it. And then the second one was really fucking hard. It was they were both really hard. But the second one took me 39 hours and the first one took me 36. But at mile 80 during the second one, I was just having a pep talk with myself like, what are you doing to your body? Like, it's so thrashed. Like, I don't think running a marathon or 2 or 3 a year is bad, but like doing 100 miles in a clip might not be the best thing for your body.
It's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
I used to do 15 miles a day, and I thought I was the fucking man. I was like, I'm
That's
the man.
You get 15 miles a day, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot. I thought I was doing more than anyone else in the world. Then I hear about people doing 100 miles, and I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I would do like 15 miles at the gym, and then I would sprint on the beach. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. You just did 100 miles.
No, but it's like, see,
I did 15, bro.
No. Because people do this too. They would like hear about ultra running, and they're like, oh, but I only run like 5 miles. I'm like, but 5 miles is still
Still
5
a lot.
miles. Like,
Yeah.
you just, I don't know, you get used to like your mileage, and then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I run 100 miles in 39 hours. The dude who took first place ran it in like 18. So, you know, it's all
Wow.
relative.
That's nuts. 18,
Crazy.
100 miles in 18 hours.
You gotta be ripping.
That's crazy, man.
And I'm talking like up mountains, down mountains, like
Yeah.
18 hours.
And where was the race?
So the first one was Bryce Canyon, Utah.
Oh,
And the second one was Asheville, North Carolina.
okay.
Yeah.
And did it like rain or anything? Did anything crazy happen?
Rained both times. During Bryce Canyon, I had an outer body experience, which was pretty wild.
Well,
Like, Jenny paced me, she paced me on both of them 20 miles throughout like the middle of the night.
oh wow.
And so it's not like, and it's not necessarily you're running the whole time. It's
Yeah.
like fast hiking and walking. But during Bryce, during the morning hours of that second day, it's like, now I'm coming up this big hill. She's like, I'll catch up with you. I got to use the bathroom. I'm like, okay. And it was like, I got to the top of the hill, but from here at the top to here, in hindsight, it felt like my awareness was above my body, and when I got to the top, it was like
Whoa.
it came back, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then after the second one, I was, you'll find this interesting coming from the background of the body. First, I was tripping, no different than taking psychedelics. I was back in our Airbnb, and the walls, they had like weird kind of like splatter on the tile, but I'm like looking at it and I'm like, oh shit, that looks like Jesus. And then, oh shit, that looks like Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. And it was like morphing and changing. And then I was like, and it's looking like all these different people. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, this feels like psychedelics to the T. And I know for sure, because then I go take a shower the next day, nothing. And it was just like completely flat. But
Wow.
that night, so this is the wild part, I'm limping around, hobbling around the Airbnb. I could barely walk. I lay in bed, and for staying up for so long, it was like I was afraid to go to sleep. Like, I was petrified. Maybe there was like a death component, who knows. But we had friends on the laptop. I must have fell asleep for like a minute, if that. I woke up in a panic, literally hopped out of bed, started pacing the Airbnb. Not a single twinge in my body. I was walking completely normal, whereas like 5 minutes beforehand, I'm like hobbling.
Yeah.
Jenny's helping me walk, and then here I am hopping up out of bed. Maybe it was adrenaline, who
Whoa.
knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It sounds like an adrenaline spike that just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and then I had to lay on the
Wow.
couch with like Shrek on or something to comfort me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not fucking going back to sleep. So it was crazy.
That's intense.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that. Staying up 36 hours, 36?
The second was 39.
39 hours. That's intense, man. I mean, I drove once for 27 and a half hours straight, and I thought I was doing something crazy. But
It is crazy.
so you don't sleep at all. You run for 39 hours straight.
Me, because I'm slow, no.
Okay.
But if you're faster, because
You
you
can
get
rest.
to your aid stations, and if you're good on time, you're like, I got 2 hours before the cutoff at this aid station. But
Okay.
for me, because again, I'm not that fast, I would get to an aid station and I'm like, I got like an hour before, you know. But it's like every time I get into an aid station, I'm racing the clock. So, and which that's, if I was faster, maybe I'd enjoy it more. But it got to the point, it's so much anxiety because you get to an aid station, you're like, I gotta get my new food, I gotta swap shit out, I gotta change really quick, and then I gotta keep it moving. And then you're just, every time you get in, you're like, oh, I got like 50 minutes. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I finished the second one 39 hours, however many minutes, and then the cutoff was 40 hours. So,
Whoa.
yeah, like third or fourth from last.
You did it though.
Yeah.
And like, did it take you like months to recover, like your nervous system to recover, or was it more just like the physical muscle, structural stuff that took a while?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the first one took me a little bit longer, maybe a couple days for the nervous system, but I think structurally, maybe like 2 to 3 weeks. But at both times, for like 3 weeks, I didn't do any activity afterwards.
Yeah.
No gym, no running, no nothing.
Yeah.
Just walking maybe. But yeah.
I would think so. I mean, I couldn't even imagine go. I mean, maybe David Goggins, he'll do like 100-mile and then go to the gym.
Yeah.
I could see him doing that. I mean, it's just amazing what the human body could actually do.
Yeah.
My body cannot do that, man.
Yeah.
I have asthma.
Oh.
Yeah.
But how are you running 15 miles a day then?
I don't know. I didn't have asthma symptoms for like years, and then they just came back.
Wow.
Yeah, during that time, I had absolutely no problem with asthma.
What, you know Dr. Andrew Wild?
I think so. Sounds familiar.
He had a story. I want to get your take on this, what you would think. But he grew up during the time of like Ram Dass and all of them. But he was on acid, and he was with a bunch of friends, severely allergic to cats.
Uh-huh.
During the acid trip, a cat came up to him, and he was petting the cat, having fun.
Yeah.
But he forgot he was allergic, essentially.
Right.
And then afterwards, or like, I don't know if it was after the trip or maybe a couple minutes after petting the cat, he realized, like, pushed the cat away, but didn't have an allergic reaction, didn't have a breakout. And from that day forward, he's never had an allergic reaction.
Wow.
Well, we can do NLP, which is a form of hypnosis to remove allergies, and so there is a subconscious component to these things. I used to be severely allergic to cats, where my eyes would start watering and they would be extremely itchy.
And 7 cats.
Yeah, now I have 7 cats.
Wow.
So
Literally 7.
yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And
They're all named after like Hindu
Yeah.
gods and
Yeah.
goddesses
I
too.
have Shiva, Shakti, Durga, Ganesha, Buddha, Vishnu, and Kali.
Nice.
Yeah, and then Diana has Gandalf and
Gandalf's the
Penelope.
man.
Yeah, Gandalf is the best. They're all awesome.
Yeah.
I like Durga. Durga's my favorite because I found her in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other 6 are all related to each other. One of them has 3 legs. She's cool. That's Ganesha. But I think that the asthma is definitely related to some emotional issues. Like, you know, for a minute I was going through something pretty major, and I ended up getting croup, which is parainfluenza virus 2. That's something that children get. And it's a severe upper respiratory infection. That was the sickest I've ever been in my life.
How long ago was this?
About maybe like 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it was during the time where I was doing inner child healing, you know? So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Similar to like maybe when you were doing that marathon, you know, you've had psychedelic experiences. I'm wondering if something was like released that was stored in your spine or something like that, and you started to have actual flashback.
Yeah, I've had that happen during yoga poses too, where I'm just in a pose for so long, I'm absolutely burning. And you push past this mental limit where I started like same thing. I was having full psychedelic experience, like
Wow.
acid visuals. You know,
Just like a regular type of yoga,
I
not
was
like
doing
a Kundalini.
no,
'cause noticed
I
that.
was just doing crow pose for like a really long time,
What's a really long time?
like a minute and a half, 2 minutes
Okay.
for me. It's
Yeah,
kinda
yeah.
long, because I was just starting,
Okay.
but
Interesting.
and I was having like a freaking whole psychedelic experience.
Wow.
I've had psychedelic experiences doing qigong.
Qigong?
I
Yeah,
want to start doing that again.
yeah. I had one very vivid visual experience of a blue triangle that just was right in front of me, and it was like it was right there.
Mm.
Yeah, that was cool. I wish I could experience that again.
And,
I probably could, but I just don't practice. This was in school when we were learning qigong.
oh, nice. Yeah.
And of course, I'm like, I must have some special ability. You know, that's the ego coming in and being like,
Yeah.
let me take this and make it into something else. But
Or it's the ego if you keep trying to seek that out. you
yeah,
know?
that too. Yeah, good point. That's
Yeah.
a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, very interesting, man. You've done a lot of really awesome stuff.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing you graduate that program and putting together that whole healing modality. I think, I'm going to refer people to you for sure. I mean, that's, I'm excited for that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be cool. It takes some time. I'm gonna try and get a job where I interned last year. I was at substance abuse, like an inpatient program,
That's good.
and there I could do individual group therapy, and they were initially letting me do the breath work with people, which was like, I'm a fucking intern. This is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But then like the doctor caught on to it, and he like kind of shut it down a little bit. But I wrote up like a big like, put some research papers in there and wrote up this big thing exactly what it was. So if I get a job there when school's done, I could really, because I sent it to him, but also like, I'm a fucking intern. Like, he probably read it and was like, okay, cool. But like, if I could sit down and actually talk to him, and then Jenny works there, that's her boss.
Uh-huh.
And so, she could like, but I think just to be an employee and actually like, he'll sit down and listen to me will probably be okay. Whereas like him just like reading that from an intern probably doesn't mean much to him. So
Yeah, you never know. You'd be surprised. Some of these people, obviously, he has to worry about his practice and his insurance and all of that. But you'd be surprised. It could have been something he stored in his mind, and maybe later it'll come back and he'll be like, "Oh yeah, you're the brushwork guy. Now that you're licensed, maybe you could implement that into your whatever strategy you're trying to use with your patients." I feel like people remember more than we think they do,
yeah,
and acknowledge us more than we think.
Yeah.
Like, we're hard on ourselves. We're all so hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
It's that, especially if you've grown up in an environment where you weren't, like, I grew up with a poor family, like, just like how we were talking about how you never went to the doctor. I remember not being able to get a pair of glasses, so I like literally couldn't fucking see. So I know how that is, man.
Yeah.
And that's stuff we carry with us for a very long time, and still until we start doing like the really, really difficult work. And just knowing that people do remember. They do. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, we think we're so insignificant, but yet we're so significant and so connected.
Yeah.
Like, we're all connected. You may not remember somebody, but there's a part of you that does.
Mm-hmm.
You might have like a recollection all of a sudden out of nowhere, and you're like, I did meet that person.
It's like when you see somebody and you're like, I couldn't tell you for the life of me where I've seen you before. Because then you start to question yourself. You're like, have I seen you before? But there's a piece of you that's like, and they're kind of looking at you too. And,
Yeah.
But it's like, you're like, where would I know you? How would I know you? But it's like, somewhere up here, it's getting triggered that like, I've seen you before, I've met you, and
Yeah.
you can't like piece it together. It's interesting.
It is. There's, Sheldrake had done studies on like deja vu and Rupert Sheldrake. Yeah.
What do you think, or what did he say it was, and then what do you think deja vu is?
It's like some type of habit or energy stuck in like a morphogenic field. So, maybe he doesn't really get into like past lives and things like that, but these things are like woven into time and space. So if we've experienced something, it could have been thousands of lifetimes ago. All of a sudden, a microcosm of that appears in our current reality, and it feels so familiar to us. But it's really just like a microcosm from a totally different lifetime that we had. I personally think that's what it is. I haven't read Sheldrake in so many years that I don't even really remember, but I just remember him talking about deja vu. Yeah.
What do you think deja vu is, or do you have?
I actually just had something come up that happened to me that was really crazy. That it's kind of like beyond deja vu, but it's reminiscent. So like my fear as a kid was always like I'm in my room, I get up and I'm like scared, and I go to run out the door, but the door slams shut and there's somebody like right there behind the door in the crack. And so when I was like 23, I just like went to sleep, and I had this intense dream where like it was beyond a dream. That exact thing, I actually like went into that body of me as a kid, ran out the door, and that's what happened. The door shut and there was somebody standing there. It was like a creepy old lady. And I just remember like waking up screaming, and I was like, that wasn't a dream. Like that's something that I had literally been like imagining happening so like vividly, and I finally like got to actually experience it in that. Like it was so weird.
Oh yeah, I mean that's interesting. And in hypnotherapy sessions, I'll do like regression therapy on somebody, and they will remember when they were a kid meeting their adult self in a dream or in some type of vision that they had, or something they thought at that time, and it was really their current self visiting them in the hypnotherapy journey.
Well,
yeah, that happens a lot. So for instance, like let's say I'm regressing you back to childhood. Well, you might have that memory like, oh, I remember when I was 7 I met a man in my dream. Meanwhile, that's you now. Totally. In the hypnotherapy session, going back.
I had
It's cool, man.
when I was on the PCT, I remember like just one day, because I kept like I was really trying to work through something at the time, and it was like not a major trauma, but like a trauma of sorts. But I just kept coming back to it, and I was in like Oregon at this point, but I'm in like full blown hiking, just crying, hysterics, but just like couldn't either accept it or get past it. And out of nowhere, man, it was like a voice cut through everything, and it was like, no matter what, everything's gonna work out. But it said it with such clarity and certainty that I didn't have to, and it didn't sound like the voice in my head, but I didn't have to, it instantly stopped my crying. I never had to second guess, was that legit? Whatever it was like capital K, knowing. Like I felt it in my bones, and it was just a reminder, like, no matter what happens, it's all gonna work out. But some piece of me, as time went on, and I like think back to that moment, but like years down the road, I'm like, maybe it's the work I'm doing now or the work I do in the future that is like tapping into that point in time that's just letting me know, like, hey man, because I do like all the stuff I do, I don't do it as much anymore, but like going back to like having a picture of me as a kid and like talking to that picture and meditating on that version of me, like IFS, internal family systems, how it's like these different parts of ourselves and incorporating that, it's like, people, your traditional, probably Long Islander would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But then it's like people who, do the work we do or come across the stuff we've come across, it's like, I think there's something to that, and I think it's super important.
Oh, absolutely. It's very important. I mean, I'm kind of going through that right now with scarcity mindset, because I just went through a period where I'm like giving my services away. I'm like taking huge discounts. I'm like, don't worry about it, just come in, I want to be in service to you. And recently somebody came in and they were like, oh, can I pay you at the end of the week? And I did it. I was like, okay, you know, I understand money is tight, but I was like, I don't want to not get paid.
Yeah.
And that was what, and also I was working with my wife. She's doing this whole demanifestation technique, which is really going to be very big and profound. And she's going to be on the podcast next week, I think,
Nice.
to talk about that. So tune into that. But yeah, I'm working on demanifesting this scarcity mindset or this lack mindset, because I was like giving things away because I wanted more people to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite happened, actually. And I realized I'm worth so much more than that, you know? So it's that child self that wants to make everybody happy, you know, that wants to be wanted and desired by people and loved. So I'm prostituting myself, and I'm like, just come to me. I'll give you the treatment for $40, you know, even though it's like a $225 session. I'm like, what am I doing? You know? But I think that is all unconscious behavior to point you in the direction of the healing that needs to happen. So there's some other aspect of the self that's animating that behavior, right? Because we're just an avatar, and consciousness is coming and animating us, and it's, you know, it could be the soul or whatever, however you want to look at it, is animating the physical body, and we're not even fully conscious of our behavior, and then we have this epiphany, and we're like, oh, I'm doing this to myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this to myself anymore. So who's going to save me? Me. That's the best healing, I think, that you can experience.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, because, you know, it has to come from you.
Yeah. And it's like, you can go to all these people, but if they don't like guide you back to you, because it's, at the end of the day, like you're saying, like only you could feel what, you know, is going on in your body, what emotions are coming up. Only you can make sense of that, and then at the end of the day, it's like only you can decide. Like if you work with a therapist, I mean, I don't think a good therapist would tell you like what to do, but they would help you work through it. But again, even if like, let's say, because we were just talking about this in class, like if you're working with somebody, this girl was talking about how she's working with this girl, and she doesn't like her current boyfriend, kind of cheating on him, misses her old boyfriend, but her old boyfriend was abusive. But it's like, and our professor was talking about like, you help her with where she's at, but also it doesn't mean you accept the behavior of cheating, you know? And it's, yeah.
Relationships are complicated, and then when people have been abused, there's a Stockholm syndrome where they love their abuser. It could stem from family dynamics. Maybe there was cheating in their family, so she's come to accept that, because it's like, I love my dad, I love my mom, even though they cheated, I still love them. So she's able to still love that person even though he's a cheater. It's a very deep program. When I do sessions, what I have people do is I have them create the fully healed version of their self in their own image, and I have that version of themselves do the healing on the current version of their self. That's a very powerful thing. It's also it's like visualizing yourself as like this superhero in a way that has solved all of your own problems. It's very empowering. So like through that empowerment, it gives people the courage to face the parts of themselves, the parts of their self that has to change.
And it's very, almost sounds identical to like different aspects of the breath work, where it's like when they're in this heightened state of consciousness, okay, imagine your highest version of yourself, see it, feel it as if it's happening right now, because you're in such a susceptible state
Yeah.
that it's like, same thing. And it's just,
It is the same thing because hypnosis is a altered state.
Hmm.
It's a relaxed state. You're in a parasympathetic state. Breath work, you're accessing the R complex of the brain. So you're working with like the brainstem. That's like the primitive mind. That's where all of your habits and behaviors are.
mm,
So breath work is amazing.
yeah.
I've only done 2 breath work journeys.
What kinds, or what did you do?
The rapid inhaling and exhaling for an extended period of time.
Okay.
I don't really know what it's called. And I've done the Wim Hof breathing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of same thing. It's like,
What is the rapid inhale and exhale called? I know it has a name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
it's specifically in yoga or just on its own?
No, it was just do you know the
Holotropic.
what is it?
Yeah.
Holotropic.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. What Hardy does?
Sure.
Yeah.
I love
Do you know Hardy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what he does. Rebirthing.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about rebirthing.
Yeah.
They said it's awesome.
I didn't do the rebirthing part, but I just did the similar breath work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you know what it is with all these breath works too? They're all it's like breathe fast, you kind of get hyper, activates the sympathetic. Breathe slow and long, like exhales, you're going in parasympathetic, and it's like everyone just kind of finds their own twist and flavors and makes it their own. But it's like when I do this, the way they structure it is the first 3 rounds are deep inhales in and out through the mouth and the rounds are like 6 to 8 minutes long, and those are the first 3 rounds. And the idea is we want to get you into that heightened state, so whatever your body has been holding on to, it's more likely to bring it to the surface for a chance to be expressed. And then once you express, clear out whatever you need to clear out, if you do, then the idea for the last 3 rounds, now we're going back down and grounding, and now we're reprogramming NLP, like, how do you want to show up in the world? How do you want to feel? What does it mean to take your power back? And and then it's like goes through love and gratitude. So it's cool. It's all good stuff.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, NLP is very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also if you learn NLP, you start to see how people are using NLP all the time on us, like on the news, the governor and whoever, they're all using NLP, all of them. They all know what they're doing.
Yeah,
That's why they're always moving their hands around and stuff like that, because that's a big part of hypnosis, actually. You could hypnotize people more with moving your hands around.
As I'm like,
Yeah, like it's a big part of hypnosis,
interesting.
actually. So it's interesting. So whenever I see somebody doing that a lot, I'm like, oh, they're trying to hypnotize me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're trying to do there.
Interesting.
Yeah, so be aware of that.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. Just like, again, the guy who did it, he's got the breathwork component, but then specific like NLP aspect of it. So it's like same as like me or you has tried all these different things over the years and then combined it into somatic breathwork. What he coined.
Yeah.
And everyone's got their own.
Yeah, we're all trying to be something or somebody or have something that we can call our own, and it's good because we all have our own unique frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So we should all have our own method, really.
Yeah.
And we learn from our teacher, and then we make it our own. That's part of it. So some people might look at that as egotistical. I look at it as necessary.
Remix it.
Yeah, it's a remix, right? Yeah, you
Yeah.
took it, you made it your own, you made it beautiful. As long as you don't disrespect your teacher and ruin, obviously, what they created,
Yeah.
I don't really see many people doing that, so I'm not too concerned with that. But yeah, there are people out there taking shortcuts too.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I think a lot of people figure that out quickly,
I think they're definitely becoming more aware of it now,
Yeah.
more than ever.
I hope
Yeah.
so. Yeah. I always, I think I think about that a little too much because I protect what I do a lot, and that might be causing resistance too, or if I let that go,
it'll create more of a flow.
Mm.
Like, I don't need to protect. I'm not responsible for protecting this. Anyone could access it. That's probably more of a flow that I want. You know?
Mhm.
So we catch ourselves. If that makes sense. We catch ourselves doing stupid stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every day.
That's why mindfulness is very important. All right, guys, I think we're going to call it because we got no microphones.
Okay.
But I'd love to have you on again, maybe go a little deeper into some of these things.
Absolutely. This was fun. This was cool. Sorry, you just got to stare at the back of my head the whole time.
No, we have a good side profile.
Yeah,
It's
we
cool.
got
Okay,
you.
cool.
No need to apologize.
Where can we find you? Want to do a little
Oh, yeah.
self-promotion or something?
Justin Alito. If you want to reach out, I'm on Instagram mainly. You can follow me there. Do massage, breath work, and then that's really all I post unless I have strong opinions on the world, and I try to be as neutral as I can. I feel like a big part of my purpose amongst all the other stuff is like getting people to meet in the middle, especially now. It's just super divisive.
Totally.
And it's like, and I honestly, after COVID, because I was so strong and stern on so many stances that I took, that one of the most important things I learned, I was like, well, maybe I wasn't as right as I thought I was. And it was like a big like humility lesson, and maybe I was, but this is some of the shit coming out. But also, even if I wasn't, or I was, I think it's healthy. Once I started looking at these big topics that way and like saw it in my own life, then it allowed me to look at things like abortion and everything going on, like all the politically charged issues from like, this side probably has some truth here, and so does this side. Like, this side doesn't have everything figured out, and neither does this side, you know, and it's
Sure.
another talk for another day.
Yeah, we'll definitely,
Yeah.
we could definitely dive in again.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Would
you,
love
my
to.
man.
Definitely.
So definitely check out Justin Alito on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
We could put a link in the video. It's a good friend, very special healer. Jackson too, obviously.
I'm getting
So
there.
we'll catch you next time on Higher Dimensions.
Much love,
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
Blessings.